boards of Pocatello and Pocatello Community Media welcomes you to this forum featuring candidates running for Bannock County Commissioner in District 2 and District 3. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization which seeks to promote the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates for office at any level. Instead, it works to provide educational opportunities to the voting public to ensure a well-informed electorate. League is always open to new members, both men and women. There are membership forms available should you be interested. Our moderator tonight will be Margaret Gagnon, who will introduce our panel and describe the format for tonight's forum. Thank you.
Thank you all. As Sarah Lee said, with us this evening are the candidates for District 2 and 3, Bannock County Commission. And over the next hour or so, we will get to know them. The process for this evening is every candidate will have 2 minutes to present themselves, present their qualifications and their goals for the office. And then from that point forward, we will take questions from the audience. The League has a few prepared questions to kick us off, and then I've already received, I think, 5 questions. So it looks like a good group of conversations we're about to have. If you have additional questions, there are cards at the front of the room and in the back as well. And if you hold the card up, someone will come around, pick it up, and get it over to our front table there. They will rewrite the question if it's either illegible or if it is going to be consolidated with other questions. And we do not take questions solely for one candidate, so they are rewritten so that the full panel can respond. This evening, we won't have phone call-in questions, and if your question has already been asked, we will not re-ask it. So after the introductions, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to questions, and then they will have the opportunity to give a 30-second rebuttal if they care so, and then finally, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. To begin, we'll allow them to introduce themselves, and just to put them on the spot, we have the candidate for District 2, Mr. Evan Frazier.
So I'm on the spot right now.
Is that cruel? Okay, we'll do this a little differently. We'll start with also candidate for District 2, Mr. Roger Hernandez.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum for us. Also, just a little history about myself. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Mexico, actually right across the border in Tijuana. From there, we immigrated from there to San Diego, from San Diego to Aberdeen, of all things. I moved to Pocatello, Chubbuck area, probably in the early 80s, probably 1986 timeframe. I've lived here ever since, going between here and Boise. Basically, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. Anyway, so, but yes, I'm sorry. I've worked here all my life. When we moved here, we met my lovely wife here in Pocatello probably about 16 years ago. Been married ever since, and we've raised 3 children together. 2 who have given me grandsons, which I'm glad we had them. Which we had those first instead of the kids. I'm telling you, that's the way to go. So, anyway, aside from that, I retired 3 years ago from military service. The military service has provided me with the opportunity to experience all kinds of interesting situations, to say the least. I've been fortunate enough to work with finances, budgets, managing people. That's pretty much innate into the job of service, so to speak. I feel that I'm probably one of the better qualified candidates for the job. Excuse me, a little dry there. And excuse me, I am really stuck on that one there. Sorry. But anyway, long story short, I do have the experience to help manage these budgets that we're running and all the issues that we're having. And I think we can do a good job, and I think we can do a better job than what we're doing now. I mean, a lot of planning, a lot of preparation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Evan Frazier?
Well, thank you. And Roger, thanks for letting me gather my thoughts there. Again, I'm Evan Frazier. I was born and raised here, graduated from the local high school, graduated from Idaho State University with a degree in education, and spent most of my life in business. And my background includes building 3 successful businesses here. I'll just focus on one of them. It's called Coldwell Banker Landmark. It was one of the largest real estate firms here back in the 80s. And when it went into the partnership, there were 6 of us. We built it up to a business. I was the manager and directing broker there. And we built a little over 50 agents, and I sold that business. But I have a business background that comes into play. After I left the real estate business, I became a state representative and then a state senator. Spent 12 years in Boise. While I was there, I had an opportunity to serve on 3 fairly important committees that deal with what we do on a county level. First off, I was the chairman of transportation for almost a decade. And a lot of the road issues we deal with, I've dealt with them for a decade. I understand them. I understand how you get things done. I also served on the local government taxation committee during those 10 years. So I understand the issues that county commissioners face. In fact, I wrote a constitutional amendment for county commissioners that's part of the Idaho Code now. Don't have time to explain that. And I also served on the Resource and Environment Committee for those 10 years. So I had a fairly good background legislatively. And then the last 8 years when I retired from the legislature, I always wanted to be a teacher. That's what I got my degree in. So I teach out at Century High School. Been out there now for going on 9 years. Absolutely loving it. That's my background. All of those are factors that you may want to consider when you look at experience and what you can actually do as county commissioner. And hopefully the questions we get into, we can bring that up. And its effectiveness, this is a job application. We're applying for the same job, and that's the way I kind of look at it. And Roger's got great qualifications, and I'm looking forward to working with the other commissioners, as well as Roger's a good man if he happens to win this race.
Thank you. Next, for District 3, our first candidate, Linda Lurick.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Linda Lurick, and I'm running for Bannock County Commissioner, seat 3. And I wanted to talk just briefly about my background and qualifications for this position, and also a little bit about my leadership philosophy, what I would bring to the table as commissioner. I have moved a lot in my life. I've also spent a lot of years in higher education, getting an education, and then I became a professor. So I have a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degrees, and a PhD. I came to Idaho State University to be a professor. I taught art history. I'm a cultural historian and intellectual historian. And I've taught university humanities courses for over 15 years, almost a decade at Idaho State University. And in that experience, I think I gained and honed a lot of skills that will really help me as commissioner if I get elected. Communication skills, collaboration, running meetings, dealing with budgets, many different things that I've learned there that I think will be applicable. I also have many years of volunteer experience working at nonprofits, a lot of board and leadership positions. I also, before I became a professor, I was a manager or project manager in the architecture and design field and dealt with multi-million-dollar budgets and many different projects. So I have that experience as well. And I think with my education and my nonprofit and professional experience, I have a lot to bring to this position, and I'm running out of time, so I maybe will talk about my leadership philosophy at the end or in the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final candidate this evening is Mr. Terrell Tovey, and also goes by Ned.
Thank you, Margaret. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this event. Again, it's good when we can have any kind of political actions take place. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong Idahoan and a lifelong citizen of Bannock County. My family came to Idaho in 1867 when it was still a territory. In my extensive travels around the world with the military, I would agree with my ancestors that this is probably one of the best places I've been. I married my wife from Marsh Valley, Idaho, so we have a lot of ties to our county here. I have a BA from Idaho State University with minors in geology and political science, so I'm very well versed in scientific methodologies. I'm a U.S. Army engineering officer. I have served for 14 years. I've been a company commander and executive officer, and currently I serve as the Battalion S4 for the 321st Combat Engineer Battalion. Right now, I'm responsible for all budgetary actions, planning, making sure that we have everything from fuel to bullets to training equipment to make sure that we can execute our missions as we see fit. I also have a background in residential construction and in the mortgage industry, where I worked for several years before I decided to go back and work on my master's, which I'm currently still working on, which is a master's of public administration. One thing that I've had a great opportunity with being in the military is developing leadership. Leadership is something that you have to constantly work at. It's not a dictatorship. You don't go in and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. You have to go in and you have to listen. You have to be able to build positive, cohesive teams, and that is something that I've proven over and over and over again. Because of those leadership abilities, I was sent to Canada to help plan joint training exercises between Canadian forces and U.S. coalition forces as well. Those are some of the aspects that I feel that will aid me if I am elected to this position in making good decisions and being able to listen to the subject matter experts that we have in our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we will alternate which candidate responds first, and this first question will go first to Mr. Hernandez. Would you support a county commission resolution similar to those recently passed in Teton and Blaine counties regarding the issue of transfer of federal public lands to state ownership and control?
That is an interesting, well, let's see. So let me clarify this. So we're looking at Blaine County and Teton County transferring federal land to state land, becoming state land. Is that correct?
So I'll just read it back.
Okay.
Would you support a county commission resolution similar to those recently passed in Teton and Blaine counties regarding the issue of transfer of federal public lands to state ownership and control?
That would depend. It's kind of a yes and no questions on that one. I'm not a big fan of transferring federal land to state land and then, for example, being burdened with the possibility of having to pay for a forest fire, et cetera, or by the same token, or having that turn into private land right off the bat. If you're going to use it for county use, then yes, I would actually go with that and just keep it county land and keep it public land, not turn into private, if that's the case with that.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
Actually, I believe the resolution, I didn't know that Blaine had passed one, but I knew of Teton County's resolution, and it's a resolution that they're not supporting making the resolution is to keep public lands public, and that the county commission of those counties is supporting keeping them public. I am in favor of keeping public lands public. I would rather not have them transferred to the state, particularly because of the financial side of it, but also just to keep it open for everybody to use those lands. But I don't think that the state has the funds to maintain our public land. So that's a part of that issue. But I would support a resolution like that. I agree with keeping public lands public and open to everybody to use. So definitely.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
So I haven't read the exact resolution all the way through, so without reading it, I can't say if I was going to support it or not support it. In the fact of keeping public lands public, lands would still be public if they were transferred to the state unless the state decided to do something with them. Just as like federal lands, if the federal government decides to close them, would also not allow them to be public. I do agree with what Senator Guthrie and Representative Packard did say the other night. That state land, they need to take a look at that, try it on an exploratory basis, but that's really an issue where the state legislature will have to go and take a look at it and see. But if we can keep lands and issues at the lowest local level, that's always the best, because then you can have the most input specifically on those pieces of property instead of somebody that's not from our community.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. When I served on the Resource Committee for those 10 years, these issues would come up. And just to give you a little background so you understand it, Idaho is 62% owned by the federal government right now. The state controls about 5% of the land. And when they laid out the checkerboards of Idaho, you might say, it's a township. You have 36 square miles, and you had 2 of those that were set aside for public purposes, primarily for public education. And those endowment lands are administered by the land board here in Idaho. They average somewhere between $40 and $50 million in profit from those lands, from the 5% that we're managing, and that goes back to help pay for public schools. And so we do have a track record of land management, and we have all the same kinds of terrains that you see with the federal government. The federal government has a different philosophy, and so their idea of clearing forests is just let it build up and then burn it down. And so we end up spending an awful lot of money fighting fires on federal properties that do encroach on state properties is problems. I think your better decisions are made at a local level, but very candidly, we have a track record, but to transfer all that land, I couldn't support that. I think we've been selectively trading lands to the federal government for years, and it makes sense because we can manage if you combine those areas. We have a lot of those management areas fairly close to Pocatello. But as far as transferring them all over, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Thank you.
But certain segments, we can work with it.
Mr. Hernandez, did you have follow-up comments?
I believe also, just to follow up on what the gentleman and the lady said too as well, I mean, yes, management at the lowest level always makes the best sense. But also, by the same token, though, you have to have a check and balance on that one between federal and state lands. For example, if we give it all to state, then you got the idea that it might be sold off, parceled off to interest on their own. Now, if you use it like Evan was saying, and use it for the common good, for lack of better words, then we can. Then as long as they're sustainable, they can do their own thing.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Woodland, following up on that just a little bit, just to clarify as well, the endowment land makes up 95% of the public lands that we have. It goes into education. So when they cut down trees in northern Idaho, we all benefit throughout the state. And so we have a proven track record. We certainly don't want to take over the Forest Service and all the BLM properties, but there's sections that we have did a good job with, so there's a record. And there are select pieces that wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Thank you. This next question will go first to Ms. Lurick. How can you, as commissioner, encourage county law enforcement to interface with the citizens of our county with the goal of fostering mutual respect and trust? And would you support the formation of a citizens committee or advisory board?
Good question. And I'll maybe address the second part of that first. I would support that kind of committee. I think an advisory board to help foster good relations between the police force. I guess it's for the county, it's the sheriff's department, but between our sheriff's department and the community, I think anything we can do to make better relations and make them work together is a good thing. So I think a citizens committee would be a good idea. I think that we all need to work together. Maybe that's kind of no-brainer, but we should support our police force, our officers, our sheriff's department in their activities. They're only trying to protect the community and serve the community, so anything that we can do to support that, I would be in favor of. And I think just community involvement, making sure that both sides kind of understand where each other is coming from, and the more the community is involved, and a committee would help that, the better we can work together. So.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
Most definitely, we've seen the positive benefits of community policing in other large cities, such as Dallas is the one that comes to mind. They cut several of their incidents down quite significantly by doing that. By having an advisory board, especially if it was made up of your subject matter experts of law enforcement, former retired law enforcement officers, lawyers, prior public defenders, prior prosecuting attorneys, so you get a full spectrum of what that means to police. The other thing is providing and making sure you have resources available to those deputies to make sure they can carry out their jobs. I saw an article the other day, I'd have to check its validity, but it actually said that Idaho police officers are some of the most highly worked officers in the United States. And if that did carry out, one way to help alleviate tensions and help things is making sure we have the correct amount of officers that we need to make sure that we can interface with the public, and we do have that time and ability to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
And just good clarification, go ahead and read that question one more time.
Absolutely. How can you as commissioner encourage county law enforcement to interface with the citizens with the goal of fostering mutual respect and trust, and would you support the formation of a citizens advisory board?
Thank you. No, we have an elected sheriff. Matter of fact, he's here tonight. And he has great public relations out there, and that's really his bailiwick. We don't handle a whole lot of police officers as county commissioners, and I totally respect our sheriff and his ability to work with the public on that. So to think that I'm going to step in and override what our sheriff is doing, and I think he's doing a fine job in that area. And if he would like our assistance, then I would certainly do that. But to come in and try to impose something and try to or micromanage what our sheriff's done, I'm not real excited about that. I think we have a fine sheriff. He's an elected official, same as we are, and that is his responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
To follow up on what Evan said here, yes, I would agree with the advisory board. I think it's a good idea. Any interface you have with the public and law enforcement. And the other caveat I would add to that is make sure that we have a wide dispersed group. For example, we have a growing Latino population. We have a reservation. And usually, as a stereotype, and I'm using in quotes a stereotype, we always look at each other with disdain, so to speak. Or not so much disdain, but with apprehension, distrust. So the best way to do it is maybe get that advisory board that you have and have them talk to each other. I mean, like Evan said, the sheriff and our police, law enforcement are doing fine. They're doing a fine job. I mean, I don't think the tensions are as high or as bad as they are, like say, for example, in Dallas or Chicago, for that matter, as the case may be, or even Ferguson, for that matter, as extreme as that. But it doesn't hurt to actually still keep those lines of communications between every group, and because we all tend to seem to look at each other with apprehension at times, and that probably would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I actually just met with the sheriff today, and we had a great conversation. And one of the things that we talked about is the importance of kind of educating the public about what the sheriff's department does. And so I think a committee like that or an advisory board could go a long way in getting everybody, keeping those lines of communication open, as Roger said, but just like making sure everybody's on the same page and working together. So I don't see it as micromanaging the sheriff or telling him what to do or his people. I think they are doing a good job at working together.
Any additional comments? Nope. Mr. Tubby, this next question will start with you. As county commissioner, how would you address the management and financing of the Portneuf Wellness Complex? And what is your opinion of the work done by the ISU master's students who created a blueprint for this issue?
So reading through that actual feasibility study, there's a lot of stuff that we need to do, and in that study they even stated that the current makeup of how the Portneuf Wellness Complex Center was proposed would not be feasible. They needed to go back and change some stuff. The amount of concerts we have, the amount of usage that we have. Currently right now, the Portneuf Wellness Complex is going to have to be paid for out of the general fund until it can become self-sustaining, if that is possible. We need to look at different types of revenue streaming. We need to make sure that those contracts that we have available that run the Portneuf Wellness Complex that are currently in place, they need to come to an end. There's a lot of things that have happened in that. There's a lot of groups that are very displeased with those because it has basically ended charitable organizations for being able to raise funds. Some of the groups that I belong to, we only would raise $1,000 a year, but it basically took that completely away from us that we could be able to do that to send people to Boys State and Girls State as well. So it needs to be changed. We got to get I would highly suggest getting the business department involved and the public administration department involved and going through with some of those SMEs and really taking a look at their suggestions in that feasibility study again.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
The Wellness Center, it's a tremendous donation we received from the hospital. We really appreciate that. And you got to realize that it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it a year later. And I take the commissioners, they saw an opportunity for the community, and they seized that opportunity. And now there's a year's experience, so it's easy to go back and criticize. The reality is I'm sure they would have made different decisions if they had the track record they have now. And when they started out that $1.9 million reserve, that was to take care of the costs. But there are, as you got into it, there were items that were unable to be finished. For example, we have a lot of light posts up there that are just posts. There's no lights on them yet. It cost nearly $3 million to pull those lights up. So there are some challenges as far as the financial side of it. We've got to put together a business plan that is more locally oriented, in my humble opinion. And as I understand, the Utah firm, they also, for the first time, managed this facility for us. And as I understand, we're able to renegotiate those contracts. I'd like to see the concessions controlled here locally. I think would have a better response from the community. We had 1,400 young folks up there playing soccer on a Saturday a few weeks ago, and there's over 7,000 people there, no concessions. And then that's followed up with the Little League football, same thing, thousands of people and nobody up there taking care of it. So I think we had a little local control on those concessions, we'd be doing a lot better financially. So yes, we need to put together a serious business plan on how to do that. But again, it was a great donation. We appreciate it, and we need to work with what we have.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Well, just to follow up on actually what Ned was saying, I think that's probably the most accurate in our situation as far as a wellness center. Yes, it happens, but that's okay. It's still a very nice facility. It's a world-class facility, and in a very real sense, we did need something like that. The other thing, what I would probably suggest on doing this is probably developing a board, an advisory board for the wellness center. Let them try to figure out how we can manage this, how we can make it work. Yes, we're a little short on funds, so to speak, here and there, but I think we can make it happen. And if we get enough people with, like Ned keeps saying, subject matter experts, and getting getting back these graduates the grad students who actually did the project and have them look at it and advise the board, we could probably pull this one out, I think. And I think it could be done in in as little time as possible, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lurie?
And I would repeat one thing that has been said already is that it is an incredible facility. It is a world-class facility, and the potential is wonderful. And so I fully agree with the decision to take that facility. I mean, it was a great gift. One thing I think that is maybe a little bit misunderstood is that was handed to the county completely turnkey, that it was finished. So people have questioned, what happened to all that money? But it wasn't finished, so there still was a lot of work that had to be done. And then there's also been issues with vandalism and things like that. Some of our citizens not behaving really well. That has cost us money. So there are things that money has gone to. But I also do think we need to come up with a long-range plan of how that facility can sustain itself, how it can pay for itself. I think that is possible. I don't think the answer should just be to go to the taxpayers and ask them to pay for it. If we plan enough concerts and enough events, we can get the people that are using the facility to pay for that facility, and I think that is the better way to go. There are some different options on how to do that. An advisory board is one. There's people that are a group in the community that's looking into a recreation district. I'd like to know a lot more information about that, because that could mean a tax increase. So there's different solutions we have to look at.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Just a thought, the county's been almost forced in a situation where we really didn't have a parks board, you might say. We're not equipped to handle those type facilities. And I think we need to really work closely with the city of Pocatello and perhaps even Chubbuck. They have a lot of expertise in parks that we don't have. And you look at it, that place should be utilized every weekend. My goodness, we have that sitting empty up there for 4 concerts. And again, a restructure of the business plan that will generate that level and keep the money here in Idaho and not Utah.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I'd like to make an additional comment. I also would be in favor of keeping the money in Idaho or keeping it in Bannock County as much as possible. But there's things happening every day at the commission. In the meetings, they've already been talking about that contract. And actually, there's 2 separate contracts, but they're reviewing the concessions contract for events other than the concerts, and looking at ending that contract, and the current commission is actually already in the process of doing that. So it looks like we will
thank
end
you.
that contract.
This question will go first to Mr. Fraser.
Thank you.
What problems do you see with the indigent fund in meeting the healthcare needs of the uninsured throughout our county? And do you see a better way to serve our low-income population's health insurance needs?
Well, you look at it, and again, Obamacare has been rolled out, and it was meant to be, I guess, the correction on all these things. But if you pay attention to the news today, we're looking at average across the states that adopt that program. We're starting at 25% increases in premiums. And so obviously that program needs to either be scrapped or greatly adjusted. And so we have a cry in that area. Indigent care, actually, you look at the budget, they've held the line fairly good in the last few years. In fact, it's actually fallen somewhat. And so indigent care is a tough one. You have a lot of folks, it falls upon the county to pay those bills. They're the last resort, you might say, and they have a tough decision on how to handle those issues. Now, as far as funding it, can we rely more on state and federal help? Probably not. Hopefully that the state will do things that will definitely affect our indigent fund if they're able to provide more services, more so at the state level. We're stuck at the end of the line where we have to handle it if nobody else handles it. So by federal law, they go to a hospital, they have to admit them. And if they can't pay those bills, it's going to come back on the county, and the county has to decide how they're going to handle those issues. So I think there's certainly some improvements made. You're going to have to see some adjustments in state law, very candidly, in the way that between the state and federal level. That is really where the main issue will be solved at that level, not at ours.
Thank you. Mr. Mendez?
Well, just to add on, to pile on onto that one, right now the average indigent care for the cost for caseload for the county is about 360 cases for the county. The county average cost annually is about $1 million, and the rest of the cost is done by the state at $2 million. So they're still covered either way, and these folks are still being taken care of. Now, if I read this correctly, we also have a charity and indigent care levy that Bannock County takes care of. So we're still taking care of these folks. It's just a matter of trying to, for lack of a better word, sometimes recoup our money. And when Mr. Pilecki was in that office right now, he actually recovered quite a bit of money back, and I think his program's still in place. I think we can still modify that program or even streamline it a little bit better. It can be done, and these folks are still being, like I said, these folks are still being taken care of. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
And I think it's important to take care of people, obviously. That is part of the social contract. We need to take care of people that can't afford to do that for themselves. So that being said, it does cost the counties a lot of money. That money is the counties bear the burden for taking care of the indigent. If at the state level, and this is something we as county commissioners could not do, we're not state legislators, sorry, that's a hard word, but at the state level, if they do something about closing the gap in coverage, we have about 78,000 Idahoans that are in that gap, and they're talking about solutions to closing the gap. I don't know what those would be. There's different things being discussed, but if they do close that gap in one way or another, that will benefit the counties. That will save us money. And the figures that I was given by Robert Pilecki, our clerk, are that it would save Bannock County almost $2.5 million, and that it would save all the counties across the state of Idaho over $60 million. So, it's really kind of shifting the burden, but if we can figure out some way to cover the cost of indigent care other than just putting that on the counties, we could save a lot of money here in Bannock County.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
I was reading the Idaho State Journal article just before I came here tonight that was talking about actually the Medicaid expansion board that was put together at the state and Senate and where it's at. And they still are pushing it off again until November 22nd. So again, it's great to hope that the state will do something, but at the county level, we at least need to look at our options that are possible. One thing that I was reading and did find, and I found quite interesting, was that not only are counties in those indigent services paying for services, but they're actually starting to pay premiums for insurance to cover those patients, so that they're not just paying or bearing the brunt of the procedures. They're actually making sure that those patients can have insurance coverage. And that's actually something that I think that we should take a look at and see if it is feasible that can be done here in Bannock County.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Well, just to follow up on that, you take a look at the premiums, because by federal law now, you have to provide health insurance. If you don't, they're going to extract from you 4.5% of your income, and that continues to ratchet up to force people to buy insurance. But having said that, if you have no money, you can ratchet up all you want. If you're not paying any income tax, you're not paying income tax. So it's an indigent problem that we have to address. But even on the insurance side, the silver plan that they talk about pays 70%. You still have 30% hanging out there that would still come back on us.
Thank
and
you.
The indigent fund is only
Thank
one point.
you, Mr. Did you have additional comments, Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you.
So we will go next to Mr. Hernandez. The question is, Chubbuck and Pocatello provide curbside recycling pickup for their residents. Would you work to provide this service to county residents?
I don't see why not. Yes, I think if we can make it profitable, make it work, I don't see why that shouldn't be an issue. Or a stumbling block, for that matter, for anything. I've already talked to a few people down south and some of the rural folks, and they wouldn't be opposed to it. If anything, some of them actually ask the same question: why don't we have it? So,
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
I would agree with what Roger has said. I think it's a service that should be provided. It's a good thing to do. And one of the most important things that would do as well is to minimize how much trash is going into the landfill. The landfill is an issue on its own, but the less we can put in it and the more trash we can divert through recycling, the better it is, the longer the landfill will last, and or the more life we get out of it. So I think recycling is the right thing to do for a lot of reasons, but it would also minimize the amount of trash that's going into the landfill. So I think that's a win-win. And I've had people out in the county, not in Chubbuck or Pocatello, but out in the county asking about why they don't have that. So absolutely, I'd be in favor of that.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
Again, I use my recycling bin. I think it's a good thing that if we offer the service, definitely on a user fee. I'm more than willing to pay for it just because it helps alleviate the amount of garbage that I have to have. I pay the additional fee for my composting recycling bin for my grass clippings that instead of throwing them away, they actually go into the composting. So definitely take a look at that. There is a need. There's definitely a want for it, especially if we can do it with user fees, so it's not the county just bearing the brunt of the cost, and help pass it around. Definitely be in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Well, I think it's something to take a look at, and I'm sure the county has thought about this before. It isn't a brand new item coming up by any stretch. And you look at, there's some capital expenditures. The more service you offer, you are increasing the tax load on folks. You may not think you are, but you actually are. And so you have to consider those factors when you start adding those costs. It costs a lot to provide all those barrels you have out there. The city of Pocatello has rented a lot of costs. And I have all 3 barrels in my house as well. I've got my recycling, I've got my blue, and I've got my grass clippings in the 3rd barrel, and I'm tickled we have those services in the city. It's certainly something that it's worthy of looking at. But again, if you're going to control costs, the more services you offer, you're increasing budget costs. So be aware that it isn't free, it doesn't necessarily pay for itself. And so you consider it, but again, have no problem looking at it, but until we have better facts than just getting hit with the question here in 30 seconds, getting an answer, that probably isn't going to happen. Now, following up on that, though, just a bit, is I want to back up just slightly. When we start looking at county government overall, we get a ton of money from the state. And we have a great opportunity working with the state on a lot of these types of issues. And I spent 10 years on the Environmental Committee in the Senate, and I'm running out of time. I won't be able to finish this whole thought. But bottom line, there's opportunities we have as county commissioners to work with the state. They have a lot of those programs out there that doesn't necessarily tie to this one, but we just need better connection with the state to be able to address a lot of these issues.
Thank you. Any additional comments? We will move on to a question that will start with Ms. Lurick. Is there a need for expansion of the county jail, and do you see alternatives to jail terms as a viable option?
Good question, and that's part of what I was discussing with the sheriff today. I think that the expansion issue is a complicated one. We've talked about the idea that we're both not in favor of just warehousing more people and making space in order to warehouse more people, more offenders. The treatment needs to be part of the program. Often crime is not just crime by itself, it's tied to mental illness, or it's tied to substance abuse, or all three together. So it's a complicated issue, but there are some issues of space in the jail. It's very overcrowded. There's different categories of population, so even if there's a bed open, if the offender coming in doesn't fit the right category, you can't just put them in that bed. So it's costing us money to send our prisoners or our offenders to other counties. So there is a need to make the jail bigger, but I also think there's a need to have services and to have some treatment be part of the solution as well. But I think if we can figure out a way to expand the jail at the least cost to the county, and come up with some other ways to certainly fund staffing and operations, to not have that just be another burden on the taxpayers, that we should do that.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
We are going to have to bring the jail into compliance to make sure that we do avoid any litigation that could cost us additional funds. As we've seen in this last bond, the taxpayers weren't willing to go for the $18 million option, so we're going to have to go back and look at that. Again, that's where your subject matter experts that were on that panel need to reconvene, look at their suggestions. The other thing that I'd like to see, and to quote Representative Nye from the other night, if they're not murderers, rapists, or violent offenders, then we need to look at skills programs, different types of probation options. I really believe in breaking the cycle, and we need to put more money into juvenile corrections, probation, stuff like that. I've seen that firsthand and what it can do, and I really think that we need to put more assets into corrections, rehabilitation, job services, and moving that way than just locking people up, and we really do need to take a look at that. Thank you.
Mr. Frazier?
It is a complicated issue, and I know that the sheriff's wrestled with this for quite a while now, trying to come up with solutions, and we've all had conversations on that. And reducing that population, I think the sheriff's in favor of that as well. You also have to take into account all the judges that are sending those folks out to the prison. And so when they start issuing arrest warrants, and you start picking up people for relatively minor factors, but they've broken the law, so they end up out there. And a lot of it is because they didn't show up for a trial date, and so they issue the bench warrants, and we can fill that thing up with all kinds of folks that perhaps we need to reanalyze that. You're right, the violent offenders, those folks, again, how long they're in the county facility compared to the state facility, and you start to understand those relationships. Yeah, we want the bad guys locked up. They're going to do more property damage, and they're actually after harming folks. We want those folks off the street, absolutely. But perhaps we need to take a look at the mix of prisoners we're putting out there, and I think a good study along those lines. I had a great conversation with a retired judge, and he was indicating, he says, there's so many of those folks that we issued the warrant, and you could fill that jail up tomorrow with all the folks out there on minor offenses that if you follow the law exactly as it's written right now, you're supposed to put them in jail. Then we need to analyze all that. We need to make sure that we're just not warehousing people, and hopefully before we start spending $20 or $30 million on a new jail, we've addressed those issues and make it as least crowded as possible and just the bad guys out there.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Actually, I have taken a tour of it long before I even started this whole campaign thing. And you just looking at the inside of the jail, it's a 20-year-old facility. It needs updating. We basically do need a new jail. There's no way around that one. As far as housing, I believe the number of inmates that fluctuate in and out is constant. It's a constant fluctuation. It costs about $55 a day to house somebody outside of our jail. Like Linda was saying, there's different categories. Sometimes we don't have the beds for those categories and they have to go somewhere else. And it costs the county $55 a day per individual. So again, it could be anything from, again, the $55 to maybe $200,000 in a month or so to house X amount of inmates. The problem here is, again, there's a recidivism that we have, but it's also one thing that I found and that I like after talking with Sheriff Nielsen is that he does have a comprehensive plan, I think, and part of it is not only just trying, I think we do need a new jail. I agree with him totally on that one. I think that bond issue should have been put out there a little longer than just a few months. If I remember correctly, it was, 3 or 4 months that it was out there. It should have been there at least 6 to 8 months for the entire county to understand the issues. And I think that was a part of it. And so it should be a combined effort between them and also other entities, social and addiction recovery.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I'd like to make an additional comment that I didn't really talk about some of the other programs. There is the skilled program, which allows people to go out and do work. That has been temporarily suspended just because of issues of manpower because of the space problem. But the sheriff has said that he fully intends to bring that back. There's also drug court. So any way that we can help people and minimize the number that we're putting into jail, I think those programs are important and we should continue.
Thank you. Any additional?
The last one, just to follow up on what Linda's saying, is the amount of folks that we've had to deal with that have mental issues. They shouldn't be in prison at all. And you take a look at the hospital, they have facilities to handle a certain limited amount of those folks, but it's overcrowded up. You can't get anybody in up there. And so then your option is Blackfoot South, and then you start talking serious dollars. But a lot of those folks, the continued mental issues, that needs to be addressed not only by us, but by the state. And again, that's something that I think as county commissioners, we have to be able to go before the state and discuss those things.
Thank you. Any additional comments? This question will go first to Mr. Tubby. Do you support the county going from a 4-day work week to a Monday to Friday schedule for the benefit of the citizens?
There was a lot of discussion in this in the assessor's office going from a 4-day work week to it went from a 5-day to a 4-day, and then when the assessors changed, it went back to a 5-day. I think a lot of it is out of habit. I have a brother that works for the site, and he finds that when he didn't have his Friday to be able to go in and do stuff, it was very inconvenient for them because just by the time he got home most of the time. I definitely think that you need to look at the cost savings analysis on it. Different departments run differently. Certain departments would save more money on a Monday through Thursday schedule. Other departments, because they're more public facing, is more available to be Monday through Friday. There's nothing that says that you can't have certain departments open Monday through Friday that are public facing, that are there for the public, and other departments that are not public facing that don't need to be. Those are the ones that you look at and say, what's the most cost-effective method then? And we should take a look at it that way.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Well, you look at that, and again, what Mr. Tubby is talking about, it depends on the department. And I think that the assessor's office did a nice job by saying we're going to do it all 5 days. As a matter of fact, they've tried to maintain the extended hours as well. And that spread the staff out fairly thin. And that probably didn't make some of the staff totally happy to doing that. But at the end of the day, it's a 40-hour work week is what you're doing, that the employees are doing. And so it's just managing them in a way. But I think there's a number of those jobs, yes, that should be there 5 days a week. And I'd like to see the commissioners present 5 days a week, very candidly. And I think that between us, even if some of the staff we may not have there, we certainly should be available, at least some of us, on a daily basis. And very candidly, weekends, not that you're trying to man an office in there, but you do a lot of outside work there as well. And so it would be nice to address those issues, but the employees, we're not going to put them in a jeopardy. We're asking them to work 48 or 60 hours a week, again, depending on the role. Assessor's office, I think, did a very nice job because of the public service there. There's some other offices that I think could benefit from being open 5 days a week. And but it has been nice if you're going to work early and be able to shop at the sheriff's office at 7:30 and take care of your license issues. So as extended hours, there's benefits on both sides, and I think we can find a happy medium in there.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Well, actually, this is kind of a near and dear to me since somebody close to me actually does work for the county and does work those 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 410s. The key here to this whole thing is real simple, I think. Depending on the manpower, depending on the department, you can have a rotating shift. You know, you got X amount of staff going Monday through Thursday, and then the other portion of the staff going Tuesday through Friday. You still have full coverage, and it still would work. Again, it would depend on the department, and it depends on how much manpower you have, and it also depends on how much public input is involved. Where, like, for example, driver's license. I mean, they're always, not to put anybody on the spot or just because it's just an idea, but driver's license. Most people, like Ned was saying, some people work these weird, odd shifts, and they only have maybe a small window of opportunity to go and get their driver's license from, say, 5 to 7, as the case may be, just as an example. But it all depends on the department again, and the manpower and how well they can work that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
Thank you. I think that is an important issue. I mean, the more that the county, all the different services, including the commissioners. I fully agree with what Evan said, that the commissioners should be there and available 5 days a week. But the more that the other services and other departments can be available to people to help our citizens, the better. And that is something that has affected me personally. My fiance lives in Pocatello. He's born and raised here, but he works in Island Park. So he works 4 days in Island Park, and the only weekday that he's home is Friday. So if he needs to go pay bills or go to any of the county services, if they're not open, that makes it difficult for him. But I think there are solutions to that problem. But I don't think the solution is to come in and say, okay, all county offices are going to be open 5 days a week, and all county employees are now going to have to work 5 days a week. If they're happy, if they do 410s or something like that, and they're happy with that, then I don't want to just come in and totally disrupt that and say they need to all work 5 days a week. So I think rotating schedules, each elected official is in charge of their own department too, so they can look at that and see what works best for them, as Jared Stein did in the assessor's office. He came up with a schedule that worked for his office. So need to look at it on a department by department basis, what works best for them.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Just one quick thought, something that popped in my head, and I really try not to use Army-isms, as we call them, but we call it METTC, mission dictates. Whatever the mission dictates for those offices and those departments, that's what we need to look at. That's what we have to do, and take that KISS principle of keeping it simple and what will benefit and what will save money and what is the best for the population, for the people, and for the employees as well.
Thank you. Any additional comments? This question will first go to Mr. Frazier. There was a difference of opinion when the commissioners moved away from the courthouse. What is your opinion, and would you make any changes?
Yeah, I would, and I appreciate that it's a decision they made a few years ago, so they've had a chance to see how that's worked out for them being out at the south end of town. I prefer being in the courthouse. I think it's an advantage to as working with other employees that work in the courthouse. There's a little better access to the public when we're in the courthouse. And so I would be in favor of moving the commissioners back into the courthouse. Now, the issue comes is that those spaces have been occupied. There isn't a ready-made space for us to move into. And so it's going to take quite a bit of effort for us to get ourselves back in there. But I think that's a better place for us. I think we're more accessible to the public, and I think that's really where we need to be. But I understand the vote that was taken there. They've been out there 4 years, so we have that track record. We can see how that's worked out for us. But as I talk to different folks out there, they do miss us being in the courthouse. And I would like to see the commissioners move back into the courthouse.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Well, I definitely would like to see the commissioners back at the courthouse. Again, like Evan was saying, when they first moved down there, let's put some background on this. When they first moved out there, if I understand it correctly, it had to do with the open meeting laws. You cannot have a quorum. In other words, in this case, the commissioners, two or at least two and not have the open meeting laws. So if two of them got together, it was open to the public. So it pretty much, if you write down something, say something as a commissioner at that point in time, or any public official, it's public record. Doesn't matter whether it's doodling or just rough notes, it's public information. Okay, simple as that. Now I can see why they went down there. Each one has their own offices. Okay, I would have, this is just my personal opinion, I would have done that as a temporary basis. Now, like Evan was saying, there is very little room. There is one office right now probably that can be used, and that's the old election office. It's small, and it probably can only fit probably one person, maybe two people at tops, the commissioner and probably staff. You do that and probably have a rotating schedule between all three commissioners rotating in from South Fifth in there. Again, depends on which commissioners are there. Just a suggestion, and I think that would work out perfectly. So I do think our business needs to be done at the courthouse.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
And I agree too. I would like to see the commissioners come back into town. It's just a logistical issue at this point. There isn't enough space in the courthouse. The elections office just moved because they didn't have enough room. They were in one teeny little room. That room, as Roger said, isn't big enough to house all three commissioners, so that's not going to work. There's other departments in the courthouse that are currently very squeezed and need more space. So I don't know that just putting us back in the courthouse, how that would work and if that's the best solution. But maybe if there's a way to work out some other space near the courthouse, and you keep the courthouse for the court functions and move other administrative functions out into a different space, I think that might be the best way to go. I hear from a lot of people that I'm talking to that they want the commissioners back in town and somewhere near the courthouse. So I'd like to see that happen, but it will be a logistical question of how we can make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
All of us are on the same pretty much agreement here that the commissioners need to come back into the courthouse. It is where the business of the people is done. As to the logistics of it, that's something that can be discussed and solved in January when whoever is elected takes office. So I don't think any of us are really measuring office space, but what I will say is a janitor's closet with a card table works pretty good for me. I mean, that's, I've done that in the Army. I'm pretty sure we could find a janitor's closet and a card table for us to work out of.
Thank you. Any additional?
Yeah, one other thought, and the commissioners for years were housed right in the meeting room, and they had their cubicles, and that was the issue. But that space is still available, and if we have other spaces, it doesn't necessarily mean the commissioners have to have their offices side by side by side. And so we may end up being scattered out trying to find that space. But the other issue you have is the staff. You got about 7 individuals out there that also have to come back in if you're going to be in there. So we do have a logistics challenge, but we certainly could, as we work those challenges, have people, one of us at least, down at the courthouse all the time.
Thank you. Any additional? Nope. This question will go first to Mr. Hernandez. Do you believe Idaho State University's efforts in Meridian will transfer significant resources from Bannock County to the Treasure Valley? And if so, what would you do about it?
I don't think they would. I think that the Meridian facilities is self-sufficient to begin with, and I think it's going to be its own campus sooner or later. It's no more like BYU Provo and BYU Idaho or BYU Hawaii. Eventually, it'll be its own entity, and I think it's doing its fine job. As far as, excuse me, could you please repeat more
Sure,
of that? Thank you, I'm sorry.
Do you believe Idaho State University's efforts in Meridian will transfer significant resources from Bannock County to the Treasure Valley? And if so, what would you do about it?
No, okay. No. So the first part actually just answered itself. As far, ISU should be self-contained. I mean, they got the 2 entities, the Meridian office, the Meridian campus, and then which should be self-sufficient pretty soon. If I understand it correctly, it's on the verge of being self-sufficient and shouldn't be able to take any more resources away from here. If anything, it will be a complement to the main campus here. So.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
ISU Meridian is a satellite campus of ISU. ISU actually has a few satellite campuses. There's Twin Falls and I'm blanking, Idaho Falls. Yes. And so there's kind of 4 campuses. The budget that is set by JFAC, and the budget for all of ISU gets divided between these campuses. So I think some of that, some of the money that goes to Meridian would be coming away from ISU here. But I don't think that that's really resources that would be in Bannock County. I wouldn't look at it that way. I don't think it's taking away resources from Bannock County. It's taking maybe some resources from ISU, but I think that's kind of separate from Bannock County. So I was going to comment on the medical school in Boise. That's the name of that town, and that is a for-profit institution that never was going to come to Pocatello. It was the company that's running it was only ever interested in doing Boise if they were going to come to Idaho at all. So I don't see that as taking away something from us directly. It never was going to come here. So I just wanted to make that clear. But that's a little bit separate. Meridian is a satellite campus.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
First of all, as a proud Bengal, and there's a couple of us here that we bleed orange and black, and on Saturdays they're not our funnest days some days, but we still love them. First of all, ISU is funded by the state. They're not funded out of the county budget. Do we want to see? I would love to see every ISU program imaginable brought here to Pocatello and at ISU to my alma mater. That's what I would like to see. But realistically, as was stated, JFAC, the budget, the State Board of Education, they have a lot to do with it. It's really not in the county's purview, but we can definitely lobby hard with Representative Nye and some other people and make sure that they have our support to go forward and try and get those programs and make sure those budgets are here. With the medical school issue, those are funds that were set aside for the medical school. I don't see a direct impact necessarily to ISU's main campus here because those programs are still going to be around. We're going to still have residencies here. There's still things like that that are going on.
Great, thank you. Mr. Frazier?
There is a drain when you have other expenditures in other campuses, and I think it does affect what's going on in Pocatello. And let me speak from a little bit of experience. My son is a pharmacy graduate. He now works at Duke Medical in North Carolina and has a great job. They have a wonderful pharmacy program. He ended up doing his final 2 years over in Boise. There's some benefit to that because he could do his rotations over there. That's the reason they were transferring over there. So I understand there's a lot of folks over there. What I'm concerned about here in Pocatello, as these get drained out there, Idaho Falls is now talking about, and they will probably create a junior college up there. And that's going to nail us big time in students as well. So anything that we can do to fight to keep those dollars and students in Pocatello is going to benefit Bannock County. I'm a Bannock County Commissioner. So I'm always going to advocate to build those facilities in Pocatello. And very candidly, even on the hospital side of it, yeah, we're a little smaller. We certainly don't have a population base there, but to assume that was the only option we had is not true. We had a candidate that ran for legislature last year, who was a local doctor, that his institution was looking at Pocatello and the Idaho Falls area, and could you spread those rotations out? Could you base it here rather than Meridian? I would like to have seen us go after that angle a whole lot more. So I think it did cost us a lot as a community to pick that location, Boise, and not right here in Pocatello. So I'm going to keep fighting to get those jobs here, not in Boise.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Just to follow up on what Evan was saying, part of the deal, though, too, just talking to some of the folks at ISU, I have friends up there, and so far they've been recruiting a lot of top-notch medical people. They really have. And they're always upgrading. They're trying always to make sure that the teachers up there are always up to par. I think they were trying to get PhDs up there in the nursing program, if I remember correctly. That was about a year or two ago. Again, the two are separate entities. The Meridian campus or the Idaho Falls campus or even the Twin Falls campus. They're separate entities. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any additional comments?
I would like to make a comment. Evan raised one important point to the community college in Idaho Falls. And if that does come through, that would definitely affect ISU. And I think that would be a drain on ISU, which could be a drain on our community. It will take students away from us. So that is a potential problem, I think. But I did want to make clear about the medical school. I'm talking about the medical school that as it has been approved, not potential.
Mr. Tovey, any additional?
No.
Mr. Frazier? This question will go first to Ms. Lurick. How can our landfill best be managed?
Rather broad question. I think we need to have somebody in charge of it that is qualified, that knows exactly what the issues are. I actually just had a lengthy meeting with the DEQ today to find out exactly what is happening at the landfill. And there is a contamination issue, but it's actually not a new issue. It's something that's been going on for a long time and has been dealt with over the years. One of the issues is that part of the solution that was put into place, part of the way that they were doing remediation hasn't worked out exactly the way that they had hoped that it would. So there's a need to address that. There's a little bit of a disturbing trend in the contamination situation. So that needs to be addressed, but it is being addressed. The commissioners have been working with the DEQ. The DEQ has said what their concerns are, and they're figuring out the way to move forward on that, and that's happening now. So I think, there are issues there, but it is how we address those, and I think that is starting to happen, and I would just continue with that. But I think one of the most important things about the landfill is whoever is in charge of it, that they are qualified and that they know how to deal with that particular issue, that they know the technical side of it and the contamination side, and
Thank you.
can address that.
Mr. Tovey?
How is the landfill best managed? First of all, at the local level, we're talking about the TEC contamination. It's triethyl chloride, I believe is what the technical name is. The county website listed it being 2 parts per billion. It's been an issue. Contamination first was noticed in the 90s. That's something going through, again, I have a background in geology. We did a lot of surface water testing and different stuff like that. We have an engineering firm that the commissioners have brought in. They're working right now with the DEQ and the EPA to make sure we're under standards. Right now, one of the main issues that happens is they used to measure in parts per billion. Now they're doing, or parts per million, excuse me. Now they're doing parts per billion. So of course, it's going to be there. It is an issue. It is a problem. We need to just make sure that we stay on top of it. We do have an aeration tower right now that does help stop the spread of that. It has been successful at this time. They do have the 34 monitoring wells that they're looking at. They go through, they monitor, they make sure that we don't have any other freshwater wells for the city supply that are contaminated, that they would have to abandon and build new ones. So again, keep it at the local level. The people that are there right now are doing a great job, and we need to make sure that we support them. And if we do need to bring in those subject matter experts, that we do so without a problem.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
We do have an environmental engineer on staff already on top of these issues, and the counties did quite a good job. The county commissioners deserve a lot of credit for what they've actually did out there. They're getting ready to open up a new cell out there that'll handle garbage for another 20 years. And the requirements that we have now are so much more rigorous than they were when they first started that site, and it takes a while to catch up. Now, again, it was mentioned parts per billion, parts per million. When you're at 2 parts per billion, when you're measuring parts per at a million level rather than a billion level, it's 1,000 times the application. So at 1 part per million, you don't even pick it up when it's 2 parts per billion. So I guess the scientific nature of that is, are we going to panic about 2 parts per billion? No, a few years ago we didn't even measure it. And so I understand that we are on top of that situation. There's concerns out there. There's methane gas that we actually now take that methane gas and convert it into energy, and we actually are able to operate equipment on generators out there from the garbage, which is kind of a nice concept. And they'll continue those areas. So I think that we're on top of it. And if there's a concern, DEQ's right there. Matter of fact, the old DEQ who's over, it's old John Tippett, and you all know John Tippett over in Boise. He was a senator representative, and we were roommates for 8 years. So I kind of know him fairly well. So we had a pretty good discussion on that, and the state's willing to work with us as long as we're conforming it with the guidelines. They have a consent agreement already in place, and I think they're doing a pretty dang good job out there managing it.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Again, to follow up on what Linda was saying, is we've got to make sure that if we do, the people that we do have that are underqualified, either A, find somebody who is qualified, or B, make sure that they become qualified. Again, you're looking at orders of magnitude when you were saying millions per billions. Sorry, it's sort of like saying, actually, orders of magnitude are, he's right. They're significant, not significant. Those are real weird math terms, the way they use it. But either way, you have to work with the people that are there right now. But the people that are there right now are the ones who are taking care of it. So in order to make sure that they take care of it, they have to have the background to it, if not the training. Again, it comes back to the human nature issue. Are these people qualified? If not, why are they not? If they're not, can we make them qualified? So I'm not a big fan of getting rid of people unless they're willing to help us as well. Because as like Evan knows and everybody else here knows, we are all public servants. I think it's a matter of being a public servant and giving it your best shot and making sure that you do what's right by the county and everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Just one quick one. The engineering firm that was brought in, they do have on staff professional engineers that are hydrological engineers. They have civils that are on staff. They have project managers on staff. So the subject matter experts are here. They are aware. They're working towards it along with those county staff and personnel. So I think we have more than enough expertise on that right now.
And Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to make a brief comment. The environmental consulting firm that has just recently been hired, when I was speaking with the DEQ today, they have a lot of confidence in this firm and feel that they really have the experience and the expertise to deal with this issue. So I think that was a good choice and a good hire, and it's getting us on the right track to addressing the problems that we have. So.
Thank you. Any additional comments? We will then move to Mr. Tubby first. The question is, studies by various environmental groups have found that the water in our valley is in danger from too many septic systems. What will you do to protect public health and the water?
So there's issues. There's been some non-build orders that have been issued in the county because of non-sewaged subdivisions that all have septic systems. The city did work several years ago to start bringing those subdivisions in on to the sewage system. The main problem is if they're in the county and they meet building guidelines and current building code, we have to be careful of how we do that. There's a lot of things too when we start talking about surface water and groundwater issues that we're meeting EPA and DEQ guidelines, and that we're not just passing undue regulation and burden just to make sure that we want to pass undue regulation and burden, because in the end that will ultimately hurt local businesses and the housing market in Idaho.
Thank you.
Or in Bannock County, excuse me.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
It's a concern that I think is being addressed, and I think Mr. Tubby handled it. I'm going to shift gear a little bit on this because we're almost to this debate, and we haven't even talked about some of the issues that we need to talk about. That's economics here in Bannock County. And I think that we need to, I hope you have some questions dealing with economic development issues. Frank Ken, my background is that of a businessman. And we need to create jobs in Bannock County. And can we do that as commissioners? No, but we can certainly be an aid in doing that. Are we getting rid of regulations that hinder businesses moving here? Rather than adding on more and more layers, when folks come to take a look at our community, we've got to have an open door that those folks are welcome here. And there's a great ad going on the radio right now talking about the state of Michigan. And it says, you know something, we're the business-friendly state. Come to Michigan and come to work. and they've gone through and they says they've eliminated 2,000 unnecessary regulations. So instead of putting more of them on, I think we need to start analyzing the regulations we already have, and can we streamline that process? The only way we're going to get a handle on our property taxes in Bannock County is to increase the economic activity here. And so we can get all tied up these type of issues, but what we need to be talking about, and I hope we have some questions along those lines, I hope we can find some, is what are we doing to improve the economic outlook so our children can stay here? I got a wonderful son in Portland, I got a wonderful son in North Carolina, and I'd like to have the jobs back here. So let's talk about how we're going to create jobs, and I hope those are some questions you have in your file there.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Can I have the question again?
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely. Our studies by various environmental groups have found that the water in our valley is in danger from too many septic systems. What will you do to protect public health and our water?
Pretty much simply do what Cascade did. At one point in time, the Cascade Lake had, J.R. Simplot actually had a cattle operation right along the side. Needless to say, there was an algae bloom, and they moved the cattle operation away from it, at least 100 feet. And that's basically what you've got to have between your water source and your septic tank. If you're even going to build one, you need a buffer zone. There is no way around that one. I mean, yes, in this case, you do need the regulations. You do need that buffer zone. I mean, you need to have that kind of filtration system, natural filtration, before you get from the black water, for lack of better words, to clean water. I mean, right now, I've talked to actually one of the professors over at ISU during the environmental fair, and he suggested that he had a couple suggestions, and he's probably the man to talk to as far as getting natural filtration going on. Yes, and there should be a buffer zone. There is no questions about that. At least, in my simple opinion, maybe 100 feet buffer zone, depending again what he would say or what other environmental agencies would recommend.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick?
I think that it's a good question. I think with subdivisions that are obviously within the city, we're on sewer system. Subdivisions that are close to the city that are currently, those houses have septic systems instead of being on the city sewer system. I'd like to see them eventually get on the city sewer system. As much as we can do that, I think is a good idea. But obviously, we're a large county. We have a lot of rural areas. We can't put everybody on the sewer system. So we are going to have septic tanks. But I'm with part of a group that's working with the county right now. We've been working with the county for a year already on developing a groundwater protection ordinance. And I don't see that as a problem with regulation. I think it's about protecting our water. It has guidelines or rules about how close a septic tank can be located to a source of water. And there's, so many feet that are required. And I just think putting that in an ordinance is a positive thing that will protect our groundwater, and that's our drinking water. So that is, a really key issue to the community. That hopefully will pass soon before the election. The current commissioners have all been supportive of that, and it's in the works with the Planning and Development Department.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Yes, I would. I just got done. One of the big custom houses that we're building right now is in the county. We had to have it inspected. Plans for our sanitation system had to pass the building department, the Department of Health, and they were designed by a professional engineer. I already believe there's plenty of regulation in there. We don't need additional regulation. Just going layer upon layer upon layer. We have it. We have the building code of the state of Idaho. We have the building code in Bannock County. That's what it's there. We just need to follow that and stick to that, and we'll be fine.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments?
Just one other thought. When you get to, for example, my brother used to live up Johnny Creek, and that whole area was not in Pocatello, and they were all on septics up there. And it's taken Pocatello years, as the mayor of Pocatello's back there smiling, understands that to handle those issues once you start annexing those territories in. And one by one, we've helped to solve a number of those problems. Heck, we used to have raw sewage that was running into the Portneuf River before we put the project through this middle of town. It was over the memorial building the other night, and it used to just be a nice big old pipe, just dumping the crap right in the river right from that. So we have come a long ways. But
Mr. Hernandez?
I like the way you put things. I really do. Straight to the point.
Any additional comments?
Just to follow up on what Ned was saying, yes, there are regulations, and yes, they're already there in place. I'm not a big fan of regulations. I mean, but they're there for a purpose. And so if any, there shouldn't be any exception to those rules. So in my simple opinion, that's the way, again, just to agree with Ned there on too many regulations do kind of spoil the soup in this case.
Thank you. Ms. Lurick, any additional?
Yes, we do have some areas within our area, it's kind of redundant, but they're designated as high nitrate priority areas. So that is something that the groundwater protection ordinance is dealing with, is making sure, because nitrates, when they come out of the septic system and if they get into our water, that contaminates the water. So keeping those septic systems as far away from as far as possible
Thank
from
you.
the source water is important.
Thank you. This question will go first to Mr. Frazier. How would you work with other jurisdictions such as Power County and the Shoshone-Bannock tribes on economic and law enforcement issues?
Okay. And again, that's a broad one, so I'm going to narrow it down just for the sake of time here. You have to have that cooperation between the cities and the counties and the other jurisdictions. But the reality is, here in Bannock County, we have great cooperation between mayors. I have a number of those mayors that are working to get me elected. And I think it's really important that we work at city, county, and state as a team and be able to know those players involved out there. A lot of these problems are not going to be solved just by Bannock County or the city of Pocatello. And having all three of those units that are actually working together, we can solve a ton of them. And when you see that the cooperation agreements that are actually in place, we have a number of those, the joint powers agreements we already have, the sheriff's office works a ton of those, and I think we do have good cooperation. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. And for us to come up with an answer on the fly like that probably won't happen. A lot of it happens just the relationships you built those counties, they trust each other. So you can actually work jointly to attract businesses to come into our area, to solve some of these environmental issues are pretty important. And growth that happens out in the county is going to affect the city and vice versa. And the state clearly has a role to play then as well. So I think the key thing is teamwork. And we have some very good legislators. We have several of them. Senator and I, you're not a senator yet, but you probably will be. And looking forward to keeping that relationship that we have to our local legislators. That's the key. And you have to work together as a team.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Could I have the question given one more time?
Sure.
Sorry.
How would you work with other jurisdictions such as Power County and the Shoshone-Bannock tribes on economic and law enforcement issues?
Okay. Well, I've talked to Sheriff Dielson about some of these situations, some of these cases, and right now he has a pretty good working relationship with Oneida, Power, Grace, Caribou County, and they actually help each other out already to begin with. All we have to do, and they do work with the tribe, with the law enforcement out there. I mean, granted, there's some tweaks that's got to be done because of federal law and so forth, but the other thing you also have to do is have communication, just open communication, be candid about things. And I think that also, as far as the economic side of the house is concerned, again, I actually, as a matter of fact, I was talking to Mr. Manwaring. He's a Bingham County commissioner, actually Dustin Manwaring's his dad for all things, and start exchanging ideas with him right off the bat. I think that's where it starts at the personal level and reach out to all the county commissioners and all the people involved.
Thank you. Ms. Lurie?
I think I don't have a whole lot to add to what's already been said. I mean, obviously the key is cooperation and building good relationships. I would say of the areas that were mentioned, Power County and the Shoshone tribes, maybe the tribes is where we really need to focus more attention and build those relationships and really work together. Some of that is being done. There's more work that can be done, and I would work hard on building good relationships with all our surrounding neighbors and keeping the communication open and working together is key.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
Again, what's been said here, we have a lot of good work that's been done, a lot of good work that will be done. We need to keep communicating, make sure that when we have information, we're not afraid to share it with others. That's the main thing right there that can help de-escalate a lot of situations, both economically and law enforcement issues, is don't be afraid to go and talk to somebody if there's an issue or a problem. I've always found that it's much easier to rip the Band-Aid off and let's talk about it right now. We're having what we call an after-action review in the military. We have thick skins. It's constructive criticism. We're not there to belittle or berate. We're there to talk. We're there to learn how to improve, because what we're doing is for the people, and that's the ultimate goal of what we're doing.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
No, just have to agree with what Ned said. You always have to have that action, good and positive remarks done. You have to accept the criticism, regardless of how it comes across, because there's always a point to be made there somehow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? So we'll go to our last question of the night, and this will start with Mr. Hernandez. As County Commissioner, how would you address the problems that have been reported at the fairgrounds, now known as the Bannock County Event Center?
All of it is just, in my simple opinion, it's planning. Simple as that. Prior planning, you've got to have short-term, near-term, and long-term planning. A lot of the issues that arose are either miscommunications, poor planning, and actually a combination of both. So if you start talking to people, making sure that they understand what you want from them, and go from there, and have them give you what they want. You have to accept what they have to say, like we were talking just a little while ago about after action. You have to receive that information. You may not like it, you have to accept it. And this is where they're coming from. And that's a lot of this can be done just by good planning and good communication.
Thank you. Ms. Lurie?
There have been a few problems at the fairgrounds that we would need to address, but I think for the most part, the current commission has already addressed them. Many people read in the paper the issue with the animals. There were some animals being abused out at the fairgrounds. That's something that is just abhorrent to me. But basically, it was a case of a few bad actors. And those people have been charged. So I think that problem was dealt with. Maybe the reaction in the beginning of sort of removing all the people who boarded their horses at the fairgrounds was maybe things didn't need to go that far. But now they've worked out a deal. Those people are back, and they've reached an agreement, I should say, not worked out a deal, but reached a mutual agreement on an acceptable fee. The fees were really low. If you look at, in comparison to other counties, we were quite low. So they've now come up with a more reasonable fee, and that those people are back, and from what I understand, they're happy. So the bad actors were dealt with. There are also groups that want to have their events at the event center, and I think they should be able to. Those are Bannock County facilities for Bannock County residents, so those groups should be able to use them as much as possible, as long as they're not causing problems.
Thank you, Mr. Tubby.
A lot of the problems and issues that have happened, I think, is a lot of miscommunication. It's easy for us to sit and armchair quarterback and pick apart decisions that were made. We have people that in those positions tried their best to make sure they were doing what was best for the county, and we need to continue working on that. That's where you have to continue working on communicating, being open and transparent. I am a firm believer of audits, and it's not an audit because we're going to go find something corrupt. It's because we're going to have an audit to show the taxpayers, where is the money? Where are we spending your dollars at? What we're telling you is correct. We have somebody that's looked at that, and that's what we're doing. A lot of that would answer questions. A lot of times, the issues and problems that have occurred because people haven't quite understood exactly how things are happening or working. We talk a lot, and we don't listen a lot, and all of us are guilty of that, me especially. All of us have to recognize that we need to be able to listen. We need to be able to, when people come and say, hey, I have a problem with these horse fees, or I have a problem with this, that we do listen, and we take the time to explain people the positions, we show them the books, we don't have a problem with that. And again, get the Fair Board back involved. I went down to one of their meetings this last month. They're willing to take on a bigger role, and we need to have groups like that more involved to help out those commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Ditto what this says as far as Fair Board. What I want to talk about in these 2 minutes, though, is something we're not going to address since this is the last question. And that is, again, what are we doing economically? We have great opportunities here in this valley. Right now, and it's not the best kept secret in the world at all, we've been fighting to get another interstate exchange north of Chubbuck. And you put an interstate exchange north of there and talk about opening up economic opportunity here in southeast Idaho, it'd be huge. Now, I was chairman of transportation for 10 years, and some of the projects that I was able to pull on the road systems here is the widening of the interstate from Pocatello Creek down to Center. And that made a major improvements. We also started building those bridges to handle a 3-lane interstate through Pocatello. The South Valley Connector. Again, it's nice to be in a position to be able to deliver those projects. I was very instrumental in getting that $5.6 million that started that project. And that took place some 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden we get that money, and I was a former mayor, and I loved him dearly, but we should have handled that project 20 years ago when it cost us $5 million, rather than when it cost us $25 million 20 years down the road after we've studied it to death. And we need to move on these things. We have an opportunity, we have the expertise to do it, and we need to make sure as county commissioners we're pushing really hard. That happened, guys, that can be thousands of jobs for us right here in Pocatello. You have that kind of economic development and our property tax issues, which are huge. Our taxes are the highest in the the entire state when you look at comparisons of if you're a resident in Pocatello paying property taxes. We need to do something in that area.
Thank you. Assuming there are no additional comments, we'll move to 1-minute closing remarks.
Can I just make one additional comment about audits? I do think audits are important, but the county does do audits. We have an auditing department. Our clerk is in charge of that. They're very competent, and they do audits quite frequently. So I think that's something that's happening. Another comment about our taxes being the highest in the state. I think that's a little bit of an oversimplification. There's all different types of tax categories, for property taxes. There's rural, and there's urban, and there's business, and some of them are high and some of them are low. So,
any additional?
Just right quick. Our property taxes, urban and rural, when you take them and average according to the state, when you look on their website, it actually shows Bannock County is the highest. When you come back and you're talking about some of these other issues with taxes, it is a very difficult thing. Audits, we do audits to audit the people that audit. That's why we do it. We're not doing it because they're not competent. We're doing that to show people that they are competent and that they know what they're doing. And that's how you do that. That's what all business and other entities do. We should do it as well.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that audit, and just for clarification, so you're not confused on it, by law, Bannock County, Pocatello, any entity that does over $200,000 have to be audited by outside firms today. That's already in the code. And if we're talking about a forensic audit where you go very deep and look and see if every dollar is accounted for, you're not going to do that unless there's a problem out there. And the overall audits, and we pay for those. As a matter of fact, I believe we're looking at a contract with MT Deaton for next year for Bannock County. So by law, let me assure you that public dollars are looked over.
Thank you. And I peer pressured you, Mr. Hernandez, into not responding.
No worries.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Do you have any additional?
No, I'm just not going to add. No need to add to the clutter anymore.
Great,
So we're
great.
good.
Well, we will give each candidate 1 minute to make closing remarks, and we'll start with Ms. Lurick.
Okay. I wanted to go back to my approach to leadership because I didn't get to cover that in the beginning. I've always had a very positive approach to leadership. My way that I approach it is to inspire people to work together to reach a consensus. And I think that one of the most important skills that I can have as a leader is to be a good listener and to work together with people and to inspire them to work together. So one of the things I did want to say to about if I'm elected as commissioner is that I don't plan to come in and make changes right away. I think I need to come in and see how things work. I'd like to meet with all the department heads. I'd like to meet with all the employees. I'd like to talk to them about what they think is working well, what needs improvement, and then figure out a way to make the best decisions of how we can move forward together. So that's what I would do if I was elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tubby?
First of all, as all four of us are running for this election, I'd like to thank Commissioner Hadley for his years of service and actually having to go through the crucible that we're all wanting to go through. And so thank you very much, Commissioner. I do appreciate your service. The other thing is in leadership and any kind of time you're going into a new position, you have to have buy-in. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to take a minute and let managers be managers, manage their departments. Let the other elected officials that have a purview, the sheriff, the clerk, the assessor, it's their departments. They are the ones that have the powers and authority over those as the people have elected them to do so. As commissioners, we are administrators, and we are there to help and to listen and to make sure we do it as correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
You look at this, we're applying for the same job, and I think you look at a person's resume, what do they bring to the table? And again, when I left the state senate, it's been 14 years ago, but I'm not going to hold it up as a display, but you're welcome to take a look at it. When I left the senate, the very respected folks that actually analyze and say who are the most effective people in Idaho, and they have a list of 100 folks. And that last year I was in the senate, there was 3 from southeast Idaho. That was the president of Idaho State University, the president pro tem, and yours truly as Senate Transportation Chairman. There's only a handful of legislators that ever get on that. What you're looking for is somebody that's had the experience, that knows how to get the job done, and has a proven record of accomplishment. This area, we're going to have to work with the legislature, we've got local officials that we have to work with, as well as all the folks who work at the county level. So you want folks that are prepared, ready to hit the streets running, knowing what they're doing, and that's what I'm offering you. And if you're kind enough to support me in this election, I'll do the best job I possibly can and use that experience for your benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. What I bring to the table. I bring to the table 30 years worth of military service, not only leadership, leading people, managing people, but also budget and finance. I've dealt with big budgets, multi-million-dollar budgets. I've not only in the small scale at this level, but also at the state level, and sometimes a couple of times at the Pentagon level. I've dealt with those budgets. I've dealt with those people as well. I do bring a skill set that will help this county move up and move on. I bring new ideas and I bring fresh perspective on this whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your participation. I want to encourage you to please vote on Tuesday, November 8th. The polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You need to bring either a photo ID issued by the government, or you can sign a personal identification affidavit. Early walk-in voting is from now until November 4th, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And remember, it's in a new location in the what was formerly known as the old jail at 141 North 6th Street. And if you're not registered yet, you can do so either at the polls on the 8th or during early voting. We encourage you to inform yourselves. The Secretary of State sent out a mailer to all Idaho residents, and particularly this year, there's a constitutional amendment, HJR 5, on the ballot to add legislative review of state agencies' rules. So please inform yourself there or on their website. You can go to Facebook and look at the League of Women Voters of Pocatello's page for more links, or go to idahovotes.gov. To get involved in League, there are membership forms at the front of the room, or you can go also to Facebook to connect with us. And we hope that you leave better informed tonight on the upcoming election. Thank you all, and have a good night.